All right, let's take a trip back in time. We're going to zero in on one single, absolutely pivotal year that really laid the groundwork for all the online education we have today. And this isn't just some dry history lesson, okay? This is the story of 1998, told through the very personal journey of one of its key pioneers, Morten Flate Paulsen. But before we dive in, just take a second. Try to remember what the internet was actually like back then. I mean, what did online learning even mean? It was basically the Wild West, a world of dial-up noises, super slow-loading pages. The whole idea was brand new, totally experimental, and frankly, a lot of people thought it was a little bit crazy. And just to really set the scene, this was the world we were living in. You have to remember, the soundtrack to getting online was that bing, 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 that horrible screeching sound of a dial-up modem. We were all using Netscape Navigator to browse. The dot-com bubble was just starting to inflate. Google was literally just being born in a garage, and Windows 98 was the hot new thing. So this is the tech landscape where these very first seeds of online education were planted. So how in the world do you build an entire new field, basically from scratch? Well, the first thing you have to do is find the other people who are crazy enough to be trying it too. And for these pioneers, that journey didn't start in some high-tech lab or a stuffy university office. Nope. It started in a pub in London. And this is what's so cool about it. These game-changing connections were happening in the most unexpected places. You've got this massive education conference, the BET conference, but the real magic wasn't always happening in the official talks. As Morten Paulsen says, sometimes the biggest breakthroughs, the most profound learning, happened over a pint, where a handful of really passionate people could just talk and throw ideas around freely. And you know, those chats over a pint, they weren't just talk. They quickly turned into something much, much bigger. This is the CISAER project, and it was a hugely ambitious thing based out in beautiful Sintra, Portugal. You had key figures like Desmond Keegan and folks from the Open University all joining forces to really systematically analyze what was happening with online courses around the world. They weren't just guessing. They were gathering hard data from 130 different institutions to figure out what was actually working. And look, all that number crunching, all that analysis, it wasn't just to write some dusty academic paper. No way. The real goal here was to create a practical blueprint, a strategic plan to take online education from this little niche experiment and turn it into a real viable thing. And this is what they came up with. Their 8 strategic recommendations. I mean, when you look at this list today, it's just incredible how far ahead of the curve they were. They're talking about standardizing credits, training teachers specifically for this new online world, and even, get this, reducing teacher workload, a problem we're still wrestling with today. This was the roadmap for the future. Okay, so you've got this amazing roadmap, but what good is a map if you keep it locked in a drawer, right? The next logical step was to get the word out, to share these discoveries and build some real momentum. And that's why in September of '98, they launched Nettskoleavisen, which was basically an online magazine to share all the news and research coming out of the NKI online college in Norway. And bam, the very first issue just laid it all out there. The demand was exploding. Course enrollments just shot up, from about 250 in '95 to nearly 1,000 just 2 years later. And they were forecasting it could hit 3,000 in 1998. This wasn't just some passing fad, it was a genuine movement. But the story of 1998 isn't just about projects and publications. For Morten Paulsen, this was also the year he faced his single greatest personal test, a real ordeal that kind of shows you the human side, the personal cost of all this innovation. So on the professional side, the pressure was just immense. He'd poured years into his doctoral dissertation, and this was a massive undertaking, analyzing data from 150 teachers all over the world to try and define the very practice of online teaching. His entire career was basically riding on this one defense at Penn State. But then, the night before the big day, after this long, exhausting trip from Norway to Pennsylvania, something just awful happened. While his family was waiting for a table at a diner, his 7-year-old daughter, Andrea, just collapsed, unconscious. I mean, just try to imagine this. This slide really breaks down the impossible situation he was in. On one side, you have the absolute peak of his professional life, defending years of work. And on the other, this terrifying personal crisis. His little girl is in the hospital, sick with the flu and severe dehydration, and they're in a foreign country thousands of miles from home. It's just unbelievable. And somehow, Somehow, he did it. He got through that night, went to the university, and successfully defended his dissertation. And then, that same afternoon, he walked into that hospital to pick up his recovering daughter, having truly, in every sense of the word, earned the title of doctor. Just an incredible moment of triumph on two fronts. So with that incredible trial behind him, the rest of '98 was really about online education stepping onto the world stage. The journey took him all the way to Brasilia for a major keynote speech, which just goes to show you how far and how fast these ideas were spreading. And his trip to Brazil was just framed by all these amazing cultural moments. For starters, he got there just a few months after Norway had famously and surprisingly beaten Brazil in the World Cup. So he had that fun little bit of national pride in his back pocket. He was also, of course, in the homeland of the legendary educational thinker Paulo Freire. And Freire's ideas about empowering students and rethinking traditional education, well, that was a huge inspiration for this whole new generation of online educators. And to top it all off, he was surrounded by the incredible, futuristic architecture of Oscar Niemeyer, the guy who designed the entire city of Brasilia. It was just the perfect metaphor, right? A conference about building the future of learning, held in a city that was itself this bold, stunning vision of the future. The year wraps up with one last really important get-together, a think tank in Barcelona. They were all there to talk about the idea of a virtual university. Now, the important thing here wasn't some specific report they produced. No, the important thing was who was in the room. You had leaders from major universities all over the world, Penn State, Athabasca, you name it. This was the moment the conversation officially went mainstream. And the whole trip, and really the whole year, ends on this just perfect human note. After a big celebratory dinner with plenty of Spanish wine, Paulsen had this funny realization. Sometimes, an early morning headache is just part of the international learning experience. It's such a great, relatable way to cap off an absolutely epic year. So when you step back and look at it all, from a chat in a pub to a global blueprint, through an unbelievable personal crisis and a huge professional triumph, these pioneers in 1998 literally built the foundation of the online world we all live in today. And that leaves us with one last, really important question. They built our world. What world are the pioneers of today building for the future?